everybody. How are we doing? Well, we're gonna do a visual novela. And like a true novela, we have Espanol. But um, this street sort of reminds me of you remember Y Adventure? I think that was from a Polish gaming company. Always it's always impressive to me when an indie company can like do um, bilingual or trilingual or quadrilingual in this case. They don't even underline it. Is that like not a thing? But obviously, I cannot speak Espanol, so we do not get the true novella experience. We go English because that's all I know how to speak. Unfortunately, because I'm lazy. Anyway, thank you for purchasing the full game. On the off chance you got an individual deleting the game folder, I did not. This is the first time I bought it, so. Before you head on the adventure, I want to offer you a chance to review the THE content warnings. If you'd rather go without them, feel free to start the game right away. Sure, what are the warnings? While the Hayseed Night is overall an optimistic, if pointed comedy by a Spanish disabled non-binary trans man about a ragtag bunch of disabled queer misfits overcoming adversity and understanding each other's plights better, the characters facing issues that I thought every fantasy setting had. A duplicate back when I started writing in 2017. Race and class are all interwoven with the plot, filtered under a layer of made-up speak and anthropomorphic anatomy. These issues don't go unchallenged, both in frame and dialogue. Fantasies, racism is still racism, and if I can't exercise it, the story will at least start. The tone may be cynical at times. The story never revels on the tragedy of preaching. I am committed to make sure that every topic is deal with it. So this is like the actual sort of like little warnings that that they put in front of things these days, right? To this end, I work the sensitivity consists steps, doing my best together and perspective and feedback, and I become band-aids over gaping wounds. Writing the Hayseed Night helped me become a better person. It let me meet so many people that pointed out ways in which I failed to be kind to others and where I was only seeing life through my own perspective, thinking of myself. I hope you'll find some good in it too. Thank you for picking up the game. Love, Maxie. You can check a chapter by chapter details list of content warnings with spoilers in the accessibility menu option. I don't know. I think I'll take it by surprise, I guess. There'll be unpleasant surprises, I'm sure, but it's a story. It's important though, like that.
Holy horns! What's with this place? It's ancient. Are you sure we're allowed to be here?
I wouldn't be too harsh on it, Strange Love, and the only reason I wouldn't be too harsh on it is because I clicked it. I said, sure, tell me what the warnings are. Like, so, I asked for it. You're allowed to be anywhere as long as no one finds you. Sneaking through the forgotten cracks in a wall is not as easy as it once was. But I still managed to push my hat and my staff, and somehow, without wrecking neither the wall any further. Today's a mess, and the last thing I'd want is the whole city knowing that I'm back on my nonsense. Namely, helping fawns trespass and abandoning temples in pursuit of fixing the written lies that pass as history these days. I'm too old for this rubbish. I catch a glimpse of Lynn's expression as I push my scarf over my face again. My newest headache looks entirely unconvinced by my logic. Look, we're already here and you're going to tell me, and and you're going to need all the help you can get, kid. I don't have any time to explain every single thing to you. If I said kid, if said kid still had any qualms left over about following me here, she has the rare decency not to notice them. Let me know if the music's not too loud. Oh, it's the screenshot. I know this screenshot. I mean, this whole ordeal is her fault in a very roundabout sort of way. Still her fault nonetheless. It's anyone's but mine, at least. I didn't come all the way back out to the city to do charity for his descendants. I just wanted to find that dumbass's grave and clean up a little, or leave some incense. I'm actually gonna lower the... Is there... Yeah, I was about to say. I cannot even hear myself over the music. Options. Music volume. Alright. I think that's it. Good chance to look at the options menu. I just want to find his dumbass's grave and clean up a little and leave some incense or something. Not this. I wasn't looking to hear legends about any so-called Knight of the Upper Field. I know the books in this library won't say a word about him, but I had to come back to this place anyway. The unlikely possibility of finding a trace of his existence among the broken tablets and burnt codices was far too compelling to ignore. Here I am, still following in his footsteps, like the few unlucky scripts that time and thieves spared, frozen in their shelves as they await the return of someone who will understand them. We have a lot in common, this library and I. The kid's eyes opened a fraction wider, and I only managed to narrowly avoid the incoming onslaught of questions. Here, ink, paper, you can write, right?
Of course! You're talking to the fastest!
Shut it, Ascadez.
Sheesh, you're really adding some flavor to my name, huh? Where did all that salt come from? Or could that be the sweetness of an old flame leaving such a bitter aftertaste?
Ew, no. Don't do that. Makes you sound like your mother. I mean, her mother. Oh, her great-great-great-grandmother? Gah. I can't believe this story has derailed so much. How long have I been gone?
I can't even start to guess if you won't tell me how old you are.
I'm entirely too old to care about something as dumb as numbers.
Well, gee, I'm starting to see why you wanted me here. Do you have a name, or are you too cool for letters too?
Too cool for Times New Roman, if that's what you're saying. My name would only doom this project. You will be with me, and you will be me, and I'll be nothing more than a space between words. Narrator, if you will. You get it? Anyway.
What a droll way to say you want me getting lynched for this.
I mean, if you're my ghostwriter, you're the one that becomes the ghost, right? Anyways, I can still keep the story to myself and tell you to get lost, kid.
But you won't, because after hearing my name, you realize I'm the chosen gazelle that legend of old prophesied would tell the true story of the night, right?
Right.
I could use a little encouragement here, not gonna lie.
Listen, Lynn. I don't believe in chosen ones, and I certainly don't know what the truth is. I doubt Adler himself ever knew. But I'm going to tell you the story I know. I will tell it once, and I will probably tell it wrong, since I can barely remember it anymore. But even so, anything I say will be 1,000 times more accurate than any of the odes this witless bunch of fop doodles have been singing through the ages. This may be Adler's punishment. Adders, not Adler. Like, I gotta drop the L there. This may be Adder's punishment for lying his way into history, but I still can't let the name of a friend be smeared like that. So what I mean to say is that I will skewer you if you interrupt me and make me forget something.
Fair.
She finally shuts up for a moment, though I know the silence won't last. Right. Good. I guess I should put my thoughts in order before we begin. His story started back when he left his village to... No, that would be too long. His story starts when he became a knight and... No, that defeats the point. I guess the story starts with me. I could allow myself that much merit, right?
Who are you again?
I'm the one who tells the story. You right? Anyway. Okay. Alright, here we go. Chapter 1. The Fickle Queen, or what better way to start a story than when things are gonna go south?
Adder. Hey, lad. Do we have to go through this every single fuck?
No!
Oh boy. Here we go.
A beast! I saw a beast!
Way to call me an eyesore.
I'm telling you, I saw a beast.
Right. Look, I'm not drunk enough for this, so good.
This ain't no time to sleep. The beast may be gone, but the Macadar is still out there. The forest's out there and it's come to find me.
Can you stop screaming like an idiot and use your brain for a second?
I knew they'd get to the city one day. We gotta tail everyone.
There are no damn trees around, you dimwit!
A long shush followed right after. Or that's what we'll go with, since the words that their dear neighbors used were too colorful to be reproduced.
Oh, then what did you holler for, Mr. Bard? The sun ain't up yet. If you don't quit your whining, we're gonna get a beating.
Says you, the buck who hath been delighting mine ears with his pitiful wailing all night long.
Say what?
You've been talking in your sleep again.
That was no dream, all right. Saw the thing with my own with my one eye. Got its face right in front of mine, and it was looking at me like it wanted to eat me.
Are you sure that wasn't Dana?
Say what?
I mean, she can be very aggressive. I wouldn't be too surprised if one night...
You think Boss is trying to eat me?
O fairest in the kingdom, what hast thou seen in this dull head?
Wait. Fair? Fair. Fair? Oh, 3.
Don't.
The fire!
I swear to bite that kid, if you keep screaming, I'm going to kill you.
Not if they get to me first!
And so Adder's heavy boots stomped the ground with the force of a stampede as he spirited away, making Geoff regret every decision that led him to suffering this torment.
Glad we sorted that out.
Wide awake now and running as fast as his clumsy hooves would let him, Adder set off towards the beating heart of the city, the Soak, hoping no one would feel like stopping his on the way. A whole year had come and gone since he had first set foot on the streets of Slander District. I mean, that would explain why his neighbors had colorful language, wouldn't it? Anyways, the most infamous slums of the capital. A place so heinous that walking there alone at night was considered a suicide attempt. A place where you were in your right to keep a house if you could outlast its previous owner. Where he'd once felt like a poor fawn fearing for his life, now he felt like a poor deer fearing for his life. I mean, some things never change. But at least he actually knew his way around after such a long time avoiding brigands. He had no time to spare worrying about trivial matters such as being robbed or stabbed, for he knew fully well he was to meet his destiny.
The patron's gonna skin me alive!
Yeah. A destiny which most likely didn't include being flailed by his dearest employer. Though we can't rule out the possibility of his district supervisor whacking him in the head for oversleeping on such an important date.
What if she hates me now? Then patron won't have no problem kicking me out. He'll kick me out and keep my skin as a payment. Nah, that's dumb. But he'll kill me anyway. Oh crap, 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 crap.
So immersed was he in the fatalistic thoughts invading his head that his brain, which was, by all accounts, mostly made up of sawdust, didn't pay any mind to the path his hooves were following.
Crap, 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 crap.
And so, as is to be expected from someone not heeding the wise advice of, look where you're going, he soon met his first obstacle on the way to the plaza. A wall.
Oh dear.
In any other place, that soft chuckle would have meant that Adder wouldn't have the benefit of living with his failures alone. In the slums, it could mean that he wouldn't have the benefit of living at all.
That was almost impressive. I truly thought that you were going to run straight through that wall for a moment.
Like the Kool-Aid Man. The voice got closer for by the second, followed by a strangely harmonic tinkling. A melody that danced in his ears and paralyzed his mind, rendering him frozen in the spot as the thought of an incoming murderous lady. Adder shut his one remaining eye and held his breath deeply, knowing that it would be his last. Not dead yet. Still not dead. How come he was still alive? That's just rude. Between his blurry sight and the obfuscating darkness, Adder could barely discern the silhouette standing right in front of him. He should have run and screamed and begged for his life, but instead, he hesitated long enough for a few stray sun rays to wander among the run-down houses, finally casting light upon his foe.
Whoa!
For your information, everyone already thinks that Rose are thick-skulled. We don't need another martyr for the cause.
A plump gazelle dressed in exquisite silks watched over him, sole witness to his downfall. She smiled at him with the ease of one who is wealthy enough to be a local wherever they go.
Are you okay?
Suddenly unequipped to offer a coherent reply, Adder stared in stunned silence. His delayed reaction was nothing short of concerning given the circumstances, but the new bump to his head was not to blame for it. He was always that way, honestly. Despite all the preconceptions screaming otherwise in his mind, this gazelle didn't appear to be hostile, murderous, or even the slightest bit interested in bringing about his death. In fact, the only demise that seemed imminent was hers.
What? Are you okay? What are you doing out about in a place like this, ma'am? You lost or something?
In a way, I suppose. I'm hiding.
And here I am hollering down the street without a care in the world. I'm so sorry. I'll leave you be.
Kind of an extravagant dress for someone trying to hide, but nonetheless.
No need. I'm not in immediate danger, and I fully intend to be found. It is a matter of principle. I guess what I intend to be is a nuisance.
So you're playing some kind of rich gal hide and seek?
Does that lower your opinion of me much?
I mean, I ain't got much of an opinion of you yet. An impression, at most?
You've definitely made one.
On the wall. Yeah, I knew where that was going. The girl turned the curved hooves toward the adder-shaped indentation on the wall. She returned with a smirk, which only served to crease Adder's brow.
You ain't no coward, that's for sure. You gotta have a lot of gall or a lot of empty room in your head to go slumming it in a place like this.
And I should know what an empty head is like. Anyway.
You're one to talk.
Yeah, exactly. Now, see, I already get this writer, and I love it.
Who, me? No, of course not. I ain't want to talk to reckless moneybags who risk their one life dawdling in slander, chewing the rag with boneheads who fly straight into walls. Except I am, because that's what they call sarcasm in these parts.
I couldn't tell.
See? That's what I'm talking about. You can't survive out here if you don't know that much, ma'am. I know y'all better sorts like playing with fire, but
he could hardly bear the thought of going on his merry way and letting a young lady become a ransom note. Not even when his job, rather, was on the line.
y'all got space for one more player?
You want us to hide together? Wouldn't that be reckless of me?
Good question. I wouldn't trust myself if I were a full-time slum dweller, but I'm a temporary slum dweller. An honorary slum dweller, if you will. You could trust me for about 10 minutes.
He's gonna rob you blind, ma'am. They laugh together under their breath like old friends sharing a secret.
I don't know about safe, but I promise you won't be bored.
I would enjoy that.
The corner of her lips contorted upward into a sincere grin. It felt like the greatest achievement in the boy's entire life. Adder dusted his scruffy pants, straightened his fifth hand jacket, and cleared his throat.
It's a deal then. You're in luck today, ma'am. You get a hiding partner, a meat shield, and a tour guide for the unbeatable price of nothing at all. Please stay close to the coward by your side and keep your wits about. Down danger alleys we go.
Adder said this with his chin up and a full chest. For anything else would have had him slapping his own snout, wondering what in the name of Hatsa has gotten himself into this time. Adder's anxieties were ample, unwholesome, and they tended to grow in an absence of dialogue. A few minutes stuck in a narrow staircase down next to a wistful-looking girl, and he was teeming with them. It occurred to him, now that his meager wits were starting to rearrange after getting so terribly scrambled, probably by hitting the wall, that running into the wall and ditching his job were potentially the least fatal of his long strings of poor decisions.
So, if it ain't prying too much, course, who are we hiding from again?
Oh, no one important. You'll know when you see them.
How if they're not important, you will know them when you see them?
Right, Gotcha.
Adler didn't dare speak a single look and didn't spare a single look in the direction of his rather nonchalant company. He couldn't afford that sort of stress in his life. Frickin' eye contact. Extrovert stuff, really. Our illiterate protagonist hardly knew what a book was, or why it was generally poor manners to judge one by its cover. But he had just started to workshop an idea that the quality of one's clothes didn't necessarily reflect one's station in life. He didn't want to assume, of course, but the long-haired lady by his side could have easily been a thief dressing up, or on her way back from a Mark's house. Adder was pretty sure this was not the case, but what if? What if it was? What then? He'd get gored to death, that's what. The boy sidled one eye discreetly toward her comparatively large, sharp-coiled black horns, hoping to find them a distance away from his face and all his fears. Fears that weren't eased by the liberty with which he found her inches away from his shoulder, gawking at his own antlers.
You're gonna make him shorter if you keep staring like that, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. Am I making you self-conscious? I was just trying to get a better look at your eye patch.
That ain't much better, you know?
Where would you have me look?
Anywhere but me.
A fine company you'll make, then.
I thought we were supposed to be hiding.
And yet, I'd swear that I'd set out to find you.
Our favorite deer didn't know what to make of this sentence. She wouldn't grant him the time to digest either.
The round will be over before we know it. Let me use my one chance to look at you.
I don't know. I kind of woke up too early, and I didn't have time to wash my face very well, and I don't really like being looked at, and I got a lot to get back to, and...
So you were in a rush. Am I keeping you?
Her expression morphed into an affected pout. An atrocious turn of events. Truth is, Adder wasn't going to be late for work anymore. He'd be double late.
Now I got places to be, yeah? But you can keep me all you like. I mean, what's the matter at this point? May as well save myself the trip back home. Chances are I'm already fired.
The lady raised a single eyebrow. It was a sharp enough stab to stab at her in the common sense.
And you'd rather not cast the die?
Never been one to gamble.
I'm much the same as you. Metaphorically, that is. I do have a job to keep me busy.
Hey, I do too. I got like 15, in fact. I'm a farmer by birth, a smith apprentice by trade, a fighter by chance, a water seller by day, a rivet peddler by night, a beggar when necessity strikes.
Newly unemployed by choice.
If you want me to get, you can just say that, ma'am.
I hold nothing but your best interests at heart.
Well, that makes two of us. What do you call that situation?
Symbiosis?
Unbelievable.
The gazelle turned her face briskly away, towards the walls surrounding the mark in the distance. Her walls seemed just as tall. Now, Adder wasn't exactly what we call smooth, suave, anything less than gritty, really. But even he knew that the conversation wasn't going right, left, or anywhere he wanted it to go. He fully realized that he was being led by the nose by some pretty lady who hadn't even asked him to stay. He could have just walked off right then and lived a life none the wiser of the trouble that would come.
Oh, you know, on second thought, what the hey? Look all you want. You got yourself a pass to the main event.
He just went full on Johnny Bravo.
Come and see, you bold. All the ways deer can grow wrong. Feast your eyes on the terror from Tantroo, the error of nature. Long-necked shovel hands!
Adder made a pirouette as he fell headfirst down the stairs. That was thankfully enough to earn him another smile.
I don't suppose you're an acrobat.
I'm the whole circus act, ma'am.
Adder wiggled one of his gigantic hands in the air for her to inspect, trying to provide a solid argument for his thesis.
What are those?
They're his mitts. He felt a nice friendly grip on his hand, kindly pulling him up from the ground, and before he knew it, he found himself face to face with the lady upstairs. She was eyeing him up and down, inspecting his hands in the way one would study an ancient carving.
My hands?
Were you born with them? How much weight can you lift? Can you use tools at all? How do you put on shirts? What's wrong with your neck? Is that a hood or a scarf? I love the pattern, by the way.
Where's your frickin' neck? It bears mentioning that at this point in his life, Adder had only been granted the honor of holding hands with two women, his mother and his boss. Both were rough and weathered by years of work, and both could beat him in an arm wrestling match given the occasion. Finely filed fingers gently wrapped around his arms were complete novelty, even if their owner was
So?
I'm sorry, ma'am. What was the question?
You! What are you supposed to be?
All right, well, I'll let you guys pick. I think there's only one person here right now, though. You guys voted for this, and only one of you shows up. Man, that sucks. I am what I am, and that's all that I am. that should be an option. That should be an option, Strangelove. I am what I am. Yeah, you're my olive oil. So big deal or no one? So you're the only one here, Strangelove. Big deal. Alright.
Can't you tell looking at these whappers? I'm a Carnite fighter. I was just practicing my tackles back there, see? Yeah! Huh! I don't mean to brag, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Oh, so you're one of those head-butting brutes. I should have known.
No, I ain't no brute. I was just lying to impress you. You seen the size of these sticks on my head? What am I supposed to do with them? Tickle the other buck to death?
Then I guess you have yet to explain the part where you run into a wall.
Oh, you know, just the usual around these lands. How I was running for my life. In fact, you and I should both get going before a local shows up with a knife.
His accidental rhyme earned him a little chuckle.
What you laughing about? Is there anything on my snout?
Is this another gig of yours? Street poet? Or could it be that you intend to steal my attention and my purse, seeing as how you seem so sure that I'm not here to rob you?
Adder was much too concussed to ponder these next words. All he saw was a chance to polish his charlatan skills, the one arguably good thing he acquired from golf.
Well, ma'am, folks around here come in two flavors. Stabby and gritty. But I'd never seen a thief that looked quite so pretty.
Oh, we're doing this.
I don't know what this means, but you're just so inspiring. That unrehearsed. I keep on rhyming.
Oh no. Stop that, they're terrible.
For you, I can keep on rhyming till I die. 'Cause lady, your beauty don't fit in a single eye.
That good-natured laughter stopped all of a sudden.
My what? Sorry?
Your beauty?
Really? How can it be that the intangible concept of beauty cannot fit within the boundaries of one eye?
'Cause it's so big?
My beauty is too big.
No, I mean, yes, I mean, it's perfect. Your beauty, beauty, I said.
Oh, how inappropriate.
Inappropriate. What a fancy word, ma'am. You can call me worse things if you'd like. Or you can call the guards. Or Illigram. Or I could just save you the trouble and go jump off a cliff right now.
While the red-haired lady laughed and laughed, unable to muster the strength in her heart to stop, Adder stumbled back, uttering apologies that surely made no sense whatsoever. He might as well have recited another poem to apologize. We'll never know for sure, for his accent became so thick whenever he lost his cool that academics to this day still argue if that way of talking can truly be considered Cernar, which I guess is the language. But I digress. It seemed Adder wouldn't be allowed to die of shame quite so early.
Wait, no. Come back. I'm not mad. But I will be if you make me run after you.
Adder halted in his step, but he remained too mortified to face her. It was the gazelle who circled around him and looked him in the eye.
We can't have you running away now that I found you.
The deer wasn't sure exactly what she meant by that, but he couldn't quite gather the wits to think about it as she moved her hands to his sunken cheeks, where nothing remained but a gaunt skin attached almost directly to his skull.
Yes, It is you, isn't it? Short-horned, loud-mouthed, and one-eyed. Just so much more emaciated. Oh, how could you let this happen to yourself?
Adder's apple bounced in his throat, suddenly brought back to the present by his realization of how close her blue eyes were to his own.
I'm so sorry, ma'am. I don't know what came over me. I swear ain't no...
Oh? So, you aren't the type that sees a pretty gazelle and splurts something daft every time?
No, of course not!
Then is it just me that has this effect on you? I'm honored.
Well, we don't know her name yet. That's the whole reason that she's... Extravagant Gazelle is a descriptor, not her actual name.
The effect? What are you talking about? I'm just a gentlemanly buffoon, ma'am. I open my mouth and silly stuff comes out. It don't mean nothing.
So you're a buffoon and a cad. What a terrible combination. You're bound to break someone's heart one of these days.
Why'd you keep talking like we knew each other?
Because you do know me. In fact, you've had me looking for quite a while now.
Ma'am, I think our 10 minutes are up. I don't know what you're selling, but I ain't gonna buy it.
Come on. Don't you remember that night on the bridge under Hirob's statue? With the guards laughing at you? You didn't hit your head that hard, did you?
I bet those guards had one haystack of a night laughing at some poor buck, but I'm pretty darn sure that wasn't me. I'd remember you, trust me.
In other circumstances, perhaps. But I suppose a year would be far too long regardless. Oh well, that only leaves one way to find out.
The cryptic woman bit her lip just long enough to make Adder lose his need to understand the situation anymore.
Come closer.
Who, me? Almost asked the deer, yet there was no one else hiding in the midst of dawn.
I said, come closer.
All right then, here I come.
That's it. Come on, don't make me walk over there. Boop.
Extravagant. It's just fancy word. Extravagant. Not awagant. Spelled like that in her name. But that's, like, the narrator is not the narrator's name, I don't think. So, like, we don't know her name yet. Like, extravagant.
That's close enough.
She slipped right under Adder's arm, uninvited, but not unwelcome.
Now, if you could get on your knees, You know what? Maybe you should see a doctor after all.
Joseph! There you are!
Now, seriously?
Oh, her name's Joseph. In less than a blink, the gazelle's smile was back on her face, and she turned to the voice in the distance. It belonged to a doe similar in fleshy clothing, hurriedly stomping her way toward Joseph, apparently.
You called?
See? There's her name. Extra,
We've been looking everywhere for you!
see? So this is a thing that they're gonna do, apparently. So if we don't know the name of the character, it's just gonna be a descriptor until we know the name. So this character is apparently some wench. Great.
And so you found me. Congratulations. Now, if you don't mind...
Miss Rochelle's had us searching for hours.
She wants you back immediately!
Well, I'm kind of busy, so would you be so kind to go tell her to find someone else to bother while I catch up with my friend here?
The fair's about to start! Head back already or you'll get us all in trouble!
The red-haired woman held her breath for what felt like an eternity. The entire world seemed to slow down to match her pace, afraid of moving another second forward.
I'm sorry. Was that an order?
What? Miss Rochelle said...
Say, do you know what happened to the last wench who had the gall to order me around?
Justine's screen remained glued on her face, but her eyes had narrowed down to a squint, sharpening her long eyelashes even further.
I don't...
Care to find out?
The doe looking for her stammered, color drained from her mane. After a few tense seconds, Justine clapped her hands.
Oh, sorry. Was that too much? Don't make that face, honey. I'm just joking here. I'm not idle enough to begin picking fights with my sisters, don't you think?
Right.
Then that's settled. Let's go.
Justine whipped her tail as she spun in the opposite direction, making the choir of bells that hung from her hips announce her leave. Adder hadn't quite planned on sticking around so long, and he positively didn't mean to spy on anyone. He was just worried, of course, but now with good reason. The withdrawn gazelle that had so eagerly tried to convince him of their acquaintance had all but vanished, and the terrifying lady that took her place seemed to have forgotten all about him. Baran or not, Adder didn't have many chances to make new friends, especially in the upper echelon, to whom he owed a great deal of kindness when his dinner depended on it. He thought it wise, therefore, to introduce himself before the strange beauty left his life for good.
Wait!
Yes.
His call-out was a little more desperate than intended, and who could blame him? He had found himself petrified at the sight of her all over again. Her bright red hair curling into a mess of waves behind her neck, her horns shining in such a deep, reflective black, her long, fluffy tail lazily wagging behind her, captured halfway through a step. What was a nobody like him doing talking to a woman like her? Why would she even bother so much to look back? Adder's heart skipped a beat, and once he realized so, he would have sooner had it stopped beating altogether. No, I wasn't looking at her, Adder yelled internally. Beads of sweat running and falling from his temples as his face became even more flustered. There's no way Flustered as he was, he barely realized the gazelle walking down the few steps that separated them, as if meaning it to aggravate his inner turmoil. Jessie smiled one last time with a mischievous glint in her eyes.
Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you. It's your turn to find me next, handsome.
Adder was so many things. He was goofy, he was loud, he had a smile that could light up a whole town. He was a gigantic, and yet, if there was a thing he'd ever call himself, it was no doubt handsome. After all, a buck's worth may as well be as large as his horns are, and his were, well, tiny, almost childlike. So that offhanded compliment, that mere insinuation that someone found him actually good-looking, made his heart flutter. And by flutter, I mean may as well burst out of his chest right then and there. So for one second, he forgot that the lady in front of him was more horned. For a moment, he forgot all the terrible things he had heard about gazelles and those who fancied them. His face turned red, his jaw came loose, and he had been able to articulate. He'd have found he'd completely forgotten his ability to talk. He still knew he had to do one thing, though, which was probably to get to work on time, because he's probably really super late by now. Yeah. This time, his shame was stronger than the wall.
Wait, what? Stop right there. What was that last bit?
The bit about the wall or the gazelle? Oh, I see. Ruminants haven't always been so successful at living together as they are now. Wars, gods, horn shape, all the excuses to be different used to make a lot more sense of all the excuses to be different used to make a lot more sense to mortals back then.
No, I know that, but there's no way the knight would have thought something so awful.
Adder was young, insecure stag at the time, in a time where every row felt like it needed to be felt the need to deny having a single drop of Barayan blood in their veins. Why would he think any different?
Why wouldn't he? That's the point, isn't it? That he was different from the rest. How could he believe any of that crap?
How should I know? I never had anything against gazelles.
Sounds like you weren't a whole lot bothered by those who did, though.
You're right. I wasn't. I just thought that there had always had to be someone to punch down on, and I spent all my energy making sure that would never be me. That was the world as I saw it. I never hoped it would be any different, never wanted it to change. Adder, though, I think he never meant to do that to anyone. I think he just didn't realize that there was more to the world than the fears he had been raised with. He had to butt heads with more than one type of wall in his life. I could be wrong, of course. His understanding could have been yet another pretense, and he may very well have lied about wanting to fight with the rest of us until his very last breath. No, I'm sure he did grow to be a wise and kind man, Lynn. Much wiser and kinder than I ever was, at least. Neither of us would be here making excuses for that dumbass otherwise.
Well, I don't care about you, but he'd better rise up soon. I have high-quality standards for my ancestors.
I'm glad you do, kid. Now, where were we? I mean, I've always, like, the interesting thing about, like, ancestors and, like, their flaws, like, the entire reason, like, it's like you can't really judge your ancestors, but you can be better than them yourself, kind of a thing. And that's sort of a dynamic that's always an interesting thing. The sun was already up in the sky by the time Adder managed to remember that he was supposed to go to soak.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to arrive so late. Please don't kill me.
But lo and behold, there was no one around.
Ha! What do you know? First again. I'm gonna have to ask for a raise at this rate. Oh, hold up. Now ain't the time for that. Andy could get here at any... Boss! Ha! Gotcha. You're gonna end up giving someone a heart attack if you don't quit sneaking up on people like that, you know. Right. Don't you think for a second I forgot I was supposed to prepare the stall. No, ma'am. But, you know, days are getting longer, and it's harder to sleep at night, and the streets are real crowded, and...
Aina's silent glare told him that she didn't believe a single word, but she didn't care enough to pry either.
Hey now! Quit giving me that look, missy! You got here late, too.
She pointed at her hair, drops of silvery green water that were dancing on her tips, pitting the ground beneath them.
And how is it my fault that you were busy dyeing your hair?
Leaving him with that perfectly valid question unanswered, she walked back to pick up a bag she had left a few steps away. She lifted it up with a single hand and headed towards the stall, closely followed by Adder. It was about time that they begun working. A sudden thought popped up in Adder's mind as he helped her set up their carpet.
So, how come the patron ain't here? It just gonna be the two of us today?
Aina simply shrugged.
You won't tell your pa I got here late, right, boss?
She punched his arm with such strength that she almost made him fall sideways.
Ow! What did I... Oh, tail. Sorry, boss.
This little reminder that was a sensitive issue effectively killed the conversation. People from all over Irium began congregating in the sulk, turning the walled plaza into a sea of spice, trinkets, and deer. The currents of the sea were still difficult to understand for Adder, who often found himself pushed to the ground in the busiest hours. Today would be especially lively. It was the beginning of Dawn-Soon season, and so the festive Avican had to make sure that big proper farewell to the rain clouds so that they'd be back again by the end of it. A pleasant change. Yeah, it's very easy to write for a mute, isn't it? Convenient sometimes, other than you have to like emote. Which, by the way, the physical emotes of the characters in the animation is very good for like a visual novel. A lot of times, like visual novels will cheap out on that, but like moving, like panning the background and having her go down the stairs was very, very cool. So I'm very impressed by the sort of pseudo puppetry that they're doing with the character stills. A pleasant change from Adler's usual day-to-day. Working in Ina's forge under the continuous risk of suffering a heat stroke or third-degree burns. Or that's what he thought at first.
Welcome, welcome! We got the best prices in town! Come on and see what goods we offer!
There was no reaction whatsoever to his incessant yelling. Other than Ina snickering at him for trying so hard, that is.
Sure must be fun watching me break my back so your dad won't yell at us.
With a long sigh, Ina sat up and cast a tired glance over the carpet. She reached out and grabbed a small shiny dagger and checked its sharpness against her gloves. She began stabbing the air as possible customers approached the stall, attempting to showcase its intended use. Adder quickly put his hands over her shoulders and discreetly bring her arms down.
You know what? Nah, take that back. There ain't no deer in the world that works harder than Ana of the Test. There just ain't. A hard worker like you deserves a good rest every once in a while, so just let me take care of this, boss.
He did his best to attempt a natural smile. Ina couldn't care less of any of this, simply shrugged and sat back, still wielding the knife. She let her hand fall on one of the stones and then paved silk and effortlessly tore it from the ground, deciding that it was better served as a sharpening tool.
You do you.
It was best to leave the issue alone. Adder had figured out quite some time ago that Ina was a creature of habit, and her habits included steadfast refusing to put any effort into anything she didn't care about. But it never really bothered him at all. There was something fascinating about watching her get completely absorbed in whatever task she had chosen to focus on, really. Adder never quite had the level of dedication to his craft, if he even had one. Stabby, stabby. She could hammer tirelessly at a single hunk of metal for hours, at a time if the piece required so, all while judging Adder's every move with the same intensity. She was just as capable of sitting in a corner and glaring away the hours while she sank deep into her own imagination. That's why he immediately knew something was off when she turned to her face from the dull knife of her own accord.
Huh? What's wrong, boss? Wait, is that... Oh, no, 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 no. Don't tell me he's coming this way!
Ina wasn't gonna tell him either way, but coming this way he was. He, being Adder's worst one-sided nightmare, the Alkmatan of Arium's Sook, Taid the Treasurer, followed by his pale retinue. Lots of fancy words. Lots of fancy words Adder can't pronounce. Apparently. Adder didn't even have time to yelp before the merchant among merchants politely announced his presence with an ancient greeting.
Tsakirmat, Miss Tess. I'm aware of how hectic the stall must be today, so I won't keep you long. I simply realized what a rare occasion it is to see you out in a crowd, so I thought I would take a moment to come and pay my respects to you. I hope you'll find some solace seeing a familiar face among the hustle and bustle.
And his eyes turned sharply away from Taid, closely accompanied by the tip of her knife. The stag's head followed the motion, only to find the eerily immobile set of deer waiting by his side.
I understand the apprehension you feel towards my company, but I'm afraid these are the only escorts I can ever trust with my back anymore. It's a dangerous world out there for people like me. Speaking of which, where's your father? Has he considered my latest proposal? Or will I have to send any more of my people his way?
Oh my. Adder didn't miss the way Ina's fingers clenched around the dagger she was sharpening. Alright, since you're still the only one here, Strangelove, what do we should do? Come up with an excuse or distract him? Wearing anonymous deer masks? You mean fox deer masks? Distract, okay.
Holy horse! Check out that Buck's grapevine, boss! It's gotta be the biggest tree I've seen in my life from root to branchlets. Darn! That shrub's worth a fortune, I'm telling you. And trust me, I'm Tanturian born and raised. I know a thing or two about giant trees.
Anna didn't bat an eye at the interruption, while Tyda didn't even seem to hear him. Their bizarre staring contest remained strictly a two-person business. Adder never was one to give up so easily, however.
Yep, sure'd be nice if we could have a plant like that dragging our stuff around. Oh, it's a real shame the patron don't plan to bother showing up today. We could have tried to convince him together. Whoever buys that tree is going to show the world he's a deer with class. Ain't that right, ain't it?
Adder needn't do anything more remarkable to put his hand on Ina's shoulder to make Tynan shoot a look in his direction at last. But with a brief glance best reserved for a slug crawling up your leg, a glance so scalding that it can make weeds wilt and crumble to dust within seconds. The kind of glance that would normally precede the untimely death of an elongated yellow stag. As Adler's luck would have it, recognition set in the merchant's gaze just at the right moment. An unsettling half smile formed on his face instead.
Ah, yes. I remember you now. Geoff's little paramour. The oversized one-eyed fawn that wanted to be a knight. 1 Durandun for a full set of armor was what you requested, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope. I mean, yep. I mean, sir, I never dare say you're mistaken, but I doubly not dare say so when it comes to numbers. Imagine it. Poor farm boy could barely count trying to tell the Talon how money works. Darn, just thinking about it cracks me up. No, sir, I can't. I just can't believe for one moment the most famous loner in all of Heirloom would be so kind to remember a dumb buck's dumb dreams, much less his ugly friggin' mug.
A loner.
Of course. I never forget a face, no matter how weathered or insignificant. That'd be remiss of me.
Tyler nodded to himself thoughtfully, giving Adder a chance to discreetly crawl behind an Ina. Despite the yellow stag's desperate inner pleas, Tyan's eyes shifted towards him again.
Forgive my curiosity. I just can't help but wonder. How can a country boy with ambitions as great as yours go on living, day after day, knowing he can't aspire to more than his deplorable life? Geoff can barely stay sober enough to feed himself, never mind someone twice his size. It must be exhausting, staying alive.
Oh, no, not at all. We manage. Sorta.
Tide's soft features drew closer to Adder, but he barely even noticed. His only eye remained glued on Tide's bodyguards.
It's not too late to consider the offer I made you back then. Let me put those deformed hands of yours to better use. I could give you the armor and the money to pay for it now, if you come work for me in the sewers. It won't be much worse than whatever the blind witch has you doing.
That's mighty kind of you, Mr. Talon, but it's poor manners to consider job offers in front of your own boss.
You make a fair point. Perhaps once I've torn that red scab off our guild's back then. Hena.
Ty had finished his farewell with a bow, and thus left the moneylender at last, followed by the delayed rhythm of a calcareous march. Adder's body had somehow contorted into being nearly indistinguishable for Ines at that point. He needed a few more seconds to thaw out of that position. No, sir, is the first sentence. How's it going, Ganova? People voted, but they didn't show up for the game. It's only you and Strangelove, apparently, from at least what I can tell from the concurrent viewers. To be fair, it is a visual novel. If you wanted to play it, you can play it.
Divine beeswax, I'm crawling out of my skin here. Who the hell you laughing at now, huh? That weirdo ain't no joke, you hear me? Last time I talked to him, it only took me shoving my hoof in my mouth half a second to swish, get a blade on my neck. And all I could see out of this eye was the creepy face of one of those golem...
Ina's ears perked up, though her gaze remained firmly locked on the blade.
No, yeah, of course you'd find it funny, Miss Tess. Paying my respect sure is a fancy way of saying he got the hots for you.
Adder barely avoided getting his liver punctured by an extremely flustered Ina. The hours passed by slowly and painfully, for they were now completely ignored by any passerby. Well, actually, avoided rather than ignored. It was no surprise. The merchant, Adder's patron, and his mute daughter were two of the most despised people in the city. In spite of their incredible variety of antiquities and smithery that the merchant had for sale, no one ever bought a single thing. There were plenty of reasons for that. Even Adder had some serious doubts about working for an old Burham man whose fur was redder than the blood of an albino smith that intended on dyeing her hair green. The fact that they worked independently from Elenra's Traders Guild probably had something to do with it too. In any case, it was well after noon that they'd done anything but sit around all day. Adder pressed his lips together and began drumming his fingers against the floor. He looked askance at Aina, hoping his subtle call for attention had stirred her curiosity, but there was no answer. He'd have to be the one to actually break the silence as usual. I mean, Aina's not really one for talking anyway.
So, hey, Aina. I bet you're still wondering just what in the world could make a hard-working buck like this one get here so late this morning.
Aina stopped hitting the rock with the blade. She barely moved her eyes towards Adder.
Well, buckle up, because there's a whole story there. This got to stay between you and I. But, this morning... I saw a gazelle. Not any gazelle. No, ma'am. She was the fanciest gazelle girl I've ever seen. And there she was in the slums, strutting her hip-shaking, earthquaking, heart-melting butt.
Aina's inquisitive stare suddenly made Adder very conscious of his own words and thoughts. Adder was most certainly not used to having her pay attention to him when he spoke.
Butt ugly face! So I just ran away because she was so awful. Ugh, yuck. Yeah.
Adder could feel how Anika's lilac eyes stared up into his very soul, piercing a hole with a question she meant to ask. Why it was such an intense look that he felt flustered. With her usual silent demeanor, Aina brought her two gloved hands in front of her face. She balled them into fists, raising just her index fingers. Then she lifted them until they rested on her forehead, like tiny horns.
Horns?
With a quick motion, she took her horns at her mouth, biting them.
I ain't no gosh darn freaking horn eater, okay? I like those!
Wow, okay. Now we're going there. The best way to define Aina's smile at the precise moment would be the terrifyingly mean. Okay, that's actually very clever writing. So, what happened there is that Aina is insinuating that Adder is gay because basically he likes gazelles because they have larger horns, because the horns thing is like does don't have horns and male deer have horns, right? So that's actually very clever. And it's not like spelled out like I just spelled it out. But that's pretty good. While her bad temper was known and feared among the other merchants, it was usually for her own acidic, especially. It was unusually for her to be so acidic, especially towards Adder. Our dear boy couldn't help but notice this change. And he wasn't going to keep it to himself, of course.
You're acting real ugly, boss.
The smile on her face vanished, replaced by a grimace. In response to this affirmation, Aina merely shifted her gaze back to the blade and resumed her task, pretending she hadn't heard him. But if Adder knew one thing for sure, it was that his insistent need to stick his nose in everyone's business.
You scared or something, boss?
A wrinkle formed over her nose as she focused on keeping calm. Adder quickly knew what was irking her.
Now. I ain't dumb enough just yet to go asking you to explain. Just promise me that you're gonna let me know if it's too much for you, okay? One nod, ma'am.
She looked up, pointing at the different parts of the crowd with her snout. Then she shrugged, trying to hide under the shade of their stall.
Well, of course it's crowded. It's a friggin' fair. Just what in the name of hats was the patron thinking, leaving y'all alone in the stall?
Aina only seemed to become even more conflicted when she said this.
Sorry, I didn't mean... Look, boss, your pa must have thought the same thing I think. That you're the strongest and the coolest and you can do this if you wanna. And you ain't alone anyway. No, ma'am. Adderson, son of Gerfaz of the upper fields right here for you. All day, every day. Now, come on. How many hugs do the patroness need to feel better?
Adder opened his arms nice and wide looking for a hug. Instead, he found the tip of a dagger inches away from his big snout.
Well, someone don't like to hug in public. I know that now. Gotta? Yep. I swear on my one good eye that I ain't gonna forget it for the rest of my life. So, please, ma'am, let me live a little longer.
I looked confused for a moment. She dropped the knife in a hurry as she realized that she was still wielding it. Clearly flustered, she tried to sign some kind of apology, which in turn led to Adder to apologize as well, which conversely made Aina attempt some sort of embrace and compensation. So, in the end, they just shook each other's arms awkwardly and called it a day.
Oh, just kiss already!
Adder and Aina immediately jumped away from each other, doing their worst attempt to look half-professional. A thunderous laugh resonated over the ruckus of the market.
Kilogram?
It's respectable Illigrab Bund Hollows to you, boy. But please, don't hold back on my account. I'll just look the other way. What?
And so appeared the man that was so red that it would seem like he'd stolen all the color his daughter was lacking.
Patron!
Ah, so he gets the respectful treatment and I don't. I see how it is.
What's that salacious doll cop doing to my daughter now?
They're just strengthening their ties of friendship. Ah, or is this a budding love?
The merchant shook his cane, hitting Illigrab's twiggy leg with a loud thunk. The tree man just wiggled his mustache in response.
Whoa! Hold up. We weren't doing anything, patron.
That's the problem, you come aground! You lighter sack! You!
A coughing fit saved Adder from more old-timey insults, which he could barely comprehend. Once he'd recovered, the merchant put his bearded face next to Adder's, resting the tip of the cane on Adder's chest. He opened his toothless mouth slowly, his breath reeking more like bleach than liquor.
You haven't sold a single thing, have you?
Now, that's hardly their fault, Red.
I'm sure this Yaltson was just frolicking with my daughter as usual!
She's old enough to frolic as she pleases.
She hasn't even come of age yet!
Of course she hasn't. There's no way for her to pass that right.
Of course there is! She just needs to open her mouth and stop being an idiot!
The only idiot here is the one talking, patron. Aina's just mute.
I wish that rub off on you! And maybe you'd learn to keep your mouth shut when adults are talking!
But I did pass the coming of age right, sir! I got them adult horns and...
Shut up! Don't you have anything to say about this, insolent child? Aina?
She walked away while you two were arguing.
Then why didn't you say so sooner, you overgrown sapling?
She looked like she needed it.
This is all your fault! And yours!
He stabbed Adler's nose with the tip of his finger.
What did I do?
That stupid child's been acting up since you first arrived!
Don't blame the poor boy. She's always had an attitude, and you know it.
I don't care! You two better go bugger off somewhere else, or I swear to Arab that I'll hit you so hard that you'll be cropping out your teeth for a week!
Both Adder and Ilrab winced at that. To the moon.
Now hold up, what?
Come on, Adder. Those two clearly want some alone time. And he'll have plenty of that when I leave him tied to the pyre next time I find a mob outside the shop.
Ilrab took Adder by the cape and lifted him off the ground as they walked away. It didn't take long for Ilrab to notice Adder's unusual reticence to speak.
Please, don't let Red's words affect you. He's, worse today. There's a storm coming from the west, and it's making us old people nervous.
No, the patron can preach and holler all he want. That don't bother me much. I mean, I don't cry anymore, at least. What he said to Aina, though? Now that's going 2 paces past the league too far. So what if she can't swear the oath thing? The 3 won't get mad at her for being mute. And anyway, Aina don't got a pass no right. It ain't like she's getting married any day soon, right?
There. Got it all out of your system, boy?
You know what? All this stuff I'm saying means radish stew if I don't say it to her face. I gotta find her and make sure she's alright.
Ilrab didn't reply to the last affirmation. He placed Adder carefully on the ground and patted his cape to straighten it. Red Merchant, yeah, the little angry dude.
Well, in that case, I have to go back to keeping watch on the fair. So, this is where we say goodbye for today. Hey, I'll send someone to fetch you if I see her, okay?
My people need me. Excelsior. Anyway, yeah. So if the name of the person has not been spoken or it's told, what the nameplate will usually just have a descriptor of the character. So like so if it said the Red Merchant, it's because we don't know his actual name yet. Adder nodded resolutely. They waved goodbye to each other. And then the book just stood there, wondering where to start looking, when the sulk felt like half a league gate to gate, assuming she was still in the sulk at all.
Finally! I thought that fluffy bastard was never leaving.
Yeah, the doe character from earlier, yes. Gilf walked into the scene with a huge smile as the giant disappeared into the distance.
Afternoon, Mr. Bard.
Oh, lad, what a face.
Well, see, it's a long...
Not a word. Thy mien speaketh clearer than thy tongue doeth. You're hungry.
Nah, I ain't in the mood to...
Well, I am. And I can't play a song when my stomach's growling a gazelle. Let's get some fried leaves.
Sorry, Bard, I ain't got time for any of that. I gotta go look for Aina. She just ran away angry as all get out, and I know darn well if I don't go check up on her, no one's gonna...
And I thought my songs were monothematic.
Gilf picked the strings of his ode one by one, deep in thought, while Adder just paced around.
I know just the place to look.
Yoff expertly snuck through the crowds, moving with such an ease that he seemed to be little more than a shadow. Adder did his best to keep up with him, though that was hardly an easy task when he was just one head taller than most deer. The place Gyoff was looking for wasn't in the plaza itself, surrounded by stalls and all the merchandise, but rather one of the many alleys that led to the sulk. The crowd there was bustling with life as well, but not quite in the same manner. They were all rowdy deer, pushing and cheering. I have to raise my voice, it's so loud in here. Anyways, a carnime alley, yeah. Anyways, carnime alleys were very different from the official sort. While killing was still very much frowned upon, there was no chivalry, no one set of rules. There was no way of knowing if your horns were gonna be being gored with their... you were being gored... I gotta read this again, sorry. There was no way of knowing if the horns you were being gored with were hygienic. There were punches, kicks, and all sorts of cheats. It was chaos. And for that, several other reasons, Aina was a huge fan of unofficial Kernmay. Sadly, as much as Adder jumped and pushed and yelled, she wasn't anywhere to be found.
Alas, your fair maiden is in another alley.
Thanks, Toad. Adder cast a long glance over the improvised battlegrounds, attempting to find her one last time.
That's too bad. Aina kicked some serious ass here.
Good thing she's not allowed to fight.
Yeah, ain't no way they're gonna let it go.
A golem, Adder.
Gylf cast a serious look in his direction. This wasn't the first time that they'd made that distinction, and it wouldn't be the last.
How many times do I gotta tell you? Aina is not a golem, Kay? She's a doe. It's just she's a bit of a weirdo.
Weirdo. Right. Tell me, Adder dearest, how many albino does can you name off the top of your head that can lift your heavy butt with just one hand?
Aina! Now let's go! We gotta find her!
Why do I even bother? Look at her. Golem or not, she's just a little cabbage head hiding in the crowds of this enormous city. She's damn good at hiding. And do you know why people hide?
'Cause they don't want to be found.
Gylf extended his arms in a dramatic manner, remarking how correct he was.
You're not gonna find her. So why don't you go and use your thick skull for something useful? Like bringing us money so we can have dinner for once.
Gylf pointed at the ring with his horns. Adder knew better than to insist. With a heavy sigh, Adder nodded and began walking away towards the ringmaster.
Ah, wait, there's just one more thing. Your bag of coins. You wouldn't want to lose what little we have to the hands of, say, some ill-intentioned crook, now would you?
Yeah, you're just gonna use it to get a drink.
Better the evil you know, right?
Gylf extended his hand a bit keenly, waiting for Adder to find the purse he usually hid within his sash. But...
Whoa, Bard. You're really gonna bust the gut laughing.
Don't tell me you lost it.
Alrighty then.
Gylf's scrawny body trembled like a branch about to snap off.
Just go. All right. See that sweaty blackhead over there with the glistening fur and a charming smile? That's your foe. I'll go place my bet now. Are you feeling like a winner, ladder?
Charming? Oh, hold up! You mean the guy with them sharpened horns? Oh, darn, Bard. Your confidence in this poorly put together row is much appreciated, but as much as it hurts me, and it does, I think I'd rather go to bed hungry today.
What?
What if it hits me in the face? I don't want to go from Adder the one-eyed to Adder the no-eyed!
Then do enlighten me, my boy, on how in the name of the Hatsa do you pretend to become a knight if you can't handle even a rack pointed at you? No wonder you can't even catch a hint, yellow piece of mangy venison. Sorry about that.
What are you mumbling there, Gylf?
I said I'm going to walk you through this. So oh help me three if you mess up.
Hey, let this tar win. And a girl, you sure eat your veggies. But all the sticks on your forehead, I can't fool anyone.
If he's serious, this is gonna be easier than I'd thought.
Wait, there's a fight coming up! Holy horns, you have to tell me everything about it! What kind of fighting style did Adder use? Was it antler rattling? He was a rattler, right? Did he prefer grappling or thrusting? Or was he more of a brawler instead? Swish, swish, bam! Pushing them right in the... Wait, did they even have any hand reps his size?
Give me a moment. I think I have to sneeze. What were any of those words? I don't even really know the rules for Kennermari. I thought you just had to hit people until they fainted. Oh gods. Nothing I can come up with is going to live up to her expectations. I can't deal with the pressure. Ah! You said you knew the knot like the palm of your hand, didn't you? The new bearer of the tale of this magnitude should be able to pen a memorable fight scene. All on their own, and if that's the case, prove that you're worthy of your name, Lynn.
Oh my god, you're right! Yes, this is my moment to shine! Leave it to me!
Yes, good. I shall go and leave you to it so as not to influence you.
Let's see, what would the knight do? Right! He needed a few tips first. So Yoff took Adder aside and held him under his arm. He said, Adder, mine lad, 'tis a dangerous fight that awaits us. But if not in the strength of thy body, I believeth in the strength of thine heart. What would thee saith is the greatest feat a fighter should at each moment striveth for? Well, diggity yee-haw, Bard! What a tootin', rootin', mighty fine question that is! Adder nodded thoughtfully to himself and then continued, I reckon that would be... Honor, as expected of a knight, dearest friend. Thou shalt be a rattler then. Ah, honorable style amongst honorable styles. The way our ancestors squareth, where two deer shalt proveth the might of their horns rather than that of their mind.
But he doesn't have many horns.
But hoy, Bard! Yelped Adder. Mine horns are so teeny tiny. Yelf smirked. This is where your strength lieth, mine otter. There is an advantage to short horns, thou see. No one shalt be able to lock their horns around yours to grapple thee to the ground. Your advice is ne'er unwise, Yoff. This is why I love you so daringly dearly. Adder, you beautiful boar. Everyone will find out if thou keepest talking so loud. We mustn't. Let the whole world bask in the warmth of our passion. Oh, Adder. Smooch, smooch, smoochy, smooch.
Ahem. Lynn, how's the scene going?
Ah, it's going.
Excuse me. Yeah, I did have to sneeze, see? I didn't lie. Anyway, Adder found himself alone at last, his dearest friend lost in the blue tides of people surrounding the ring. The veins were starting to pop in his eye, making everything harder to see, except the stag waiting in front of him. The deer with the sharp horns smirked in a drunken haze, clearly looking down on Adder. It wasn't the first time someone pitied him, and lived to regret it, as the drunkard would soon learn. The ringmaster looked left and right, making sure both fighters knew what they were getting into. He lifted his hands carefully as he stepped back and then, "Go!" he screamed with a hand chop. Towering deer charged forward at Adler like a runaway fur, horns lined up and ready to slam him into the force of a matador stampede. But the road didn't move a single muscle. Adler immediately waited, silencing all the voices that screamed at him to run and die. He didn't even assume the step rider stance. He just waited, closing his eyes, lest the sight of the incoming enemy would betray his nerve. And when the time was right, Adder opened his arms wide and mentally prepared and ready for the incoming attack. Oop. Adder opened his arms wide, mentally prepared and ready for the incoming attack, or so he thought. The deer slammed his head into Adler's stomach, sending him into the ground with a single well-placed blow. But when all seemed lost, Adder managed to stand his ground, rapidly holding onto his foe's horns. Adler's foe smirked, but by the time our heroes realized he'd fallen into a trap, his whole body was hovering several arms above the ground. The carrot strikes back. What a foul move. He should have turned Adler into a strainer if that yellow deer had a single bite's worth of meat on his body. If that hadn't been the case to begin with, he would have been able to at least struggle against the enemy's hold as he flew across the sky, or at least he would have been serene enough to come up with a different approach to the situation. But for now, face to the pavement it is. You're dead to everyone. Interesting. There was no time to hesitate. Both the roe and doe opponent rushed towards each other, head first, heeding the scream of ancient instinct that boiled in their bloods. Every voice in the alley fell silent as the deer slammed into each other, horns singing a threatening melody as they rattled fiercely in a never-ending battle for dominance. The tension could be cut with a knife as their foreheads pushed against each other, but Gyoff's advice proved unerring indeed. As much as he tried, the bigger deer could not intertwine his antlers around Adler's short, straight ones. The answer was clear, of course. A barrage of swift punches to the other deer's face would send his brain bouncing all over his skull. It'd be the obvious choice to anyone with deer-sized hands, to any onerous ruffian. Refusing to even consider such lowly tactics, our hero decided to take the moral high ground instead. And the physical, too. Tired of this pointless dance, the deer pushed Adler's back with a swift head movement. Before Adler had a chance to react, the foam slammed hit in the roe's chest, knocking him out in the air and lifting him off the ground with ease. Adler flailed his one arm free and legs most valiantly, but there was little he could do in such a compromising position. Worn out as he was after trying to uphold his honor as a brave warrior with such a direct approach. And crack! I could not tell if it was the sound of Adler's neck or Adler's teeth as his face hit the ground at full speed. But little did that matter, for nothing lay more broken than his dreams. You're dead to me. Wow. After such a shameful defeat, the writer decided to take a page from Adler's book, literally. She began writing these words as a means to stall her own anxiety, as she tried to understand how she managed to dig herself into such a narrative hole. She had clearly made a mistake somewhere. It was obvious to her prodigious mind that a boy so preoccupied with doing what was good and true and right could hardly be willing to do whatever it took to stand victorious and carve a space for himself in the annals of history. Our wonderful narrator started to realize perhaps she had misunderstood something about Adder, for she could picture no scenario where a well-meaning and upstanding street fighter could ever get past his first night in the Slander District. Omelibidalida of Askadaz, true descendant of the night, decided to revisit her decision, thinking more deeply about the kind of priorities her ancestors would have.
Ah, so thou art a brawler, dearest friend. I have been
Hey, Summer.
taught you well. There is no honor in death. If thine horns will not aid you in battle, use those hands the gods gave you. Pummel them to the ground. Thou shalt win this fight and prevail until the next. But hoy, Bard! Yelped Adder. Mine hands are so bogglingly big! Yuff smirked. All the better to swat their faces away. If they trieth to thrust towards thee with their large horns, thou shalt only need to slap them into the ground. Stand victorious over those who would hurt you, mine Adder.
And then they smooched again, but quietly. Oop. Alright. Alright, so I think after this it's going to be new stuff. Oh. Jabal Adler had a chance to react. His foe slammed his head back in the rose checks, knocking the air out of him, lifting him to the ground with ease. Wait, what? Ah. I thought it said, like, if you had no honor, you would have... whatever. Thwack. Adler spun the tip of his hooves and struck his opponent with a force to swat him straight into the ground. And you may think, wow, that's kind of anticlimactic. But it was everything but... but it was anything but for Adler. Everything but. Both the public and the ringmaster tilted their heads as they stared at the man lying on his snout, a bit unsure of the nature of the event they had just witnessed, but they saw nothing but the truth. Taking Goff's advice to heart, Adder obtained a simple, beautiful victory. Down! Screamed the ringmaster. Adder won the fight and lived to see another day. Wait, so he wins?
Of course he wins. He's the knight, you doof.
Right. Never mind then. Well done then.
I'm pretty great, yes.
Now that's this torn page you're trying to hide behind your back.
Wait, don't!
So anyway.
Whoa! I can't believe it! Still alive and kicking! Come on, show me the money, Bard! I want to bite every single coin!
I completely forgot to place the bet.
Goff covered his face with his hands, making some sort of unintelligible noise that can only be described as a sound of anguish.
Hey, Big Ed, I want to learn some tips too. I'll buy you dinner.
Hey now, sir! You really think you're gonna steal my manager away, so...
Goff shut Adler's snout with one hand.
My dear boy, you sure gave it all today, so why don't you go and enjoy what's left of the fair? I have a gig in the tavern later. Money, yes. Don't expect me tonight.
With that, Goff hurriedly shooed away, very confused Adder away. Our protagonist wandered back towards the increasingly empty and silent plaza, unsure of where he was headed next. His victory had been brief, but a brief rush against mediocrity, and now that he was alone, his mind seeked the comfort of a familiar place, a seething pit in his chest. No, he had no business there. Adder had spent enough nights hungry and alone to learn to eat his emotions for dinner. But still, his stomach protested, demanding to know when their next meal would arrive. He could only walk a little bit further to chase those thoughts away. No matter how resilient he was, he would eventually get tired and staggered his way back home, fall asleep in his little corner, dream of a sleepless dream, and wake up to a drunk Yoff crash again. He'd head off to work and Ina would get him some food. That's right. He had no doubt in his heart that his boss would come back. What had he made such a fuss for? Ina had never missed a single day of work the whole year he'd been working for her. Anyways, she was stronger than him. What could he do? He had no reason to say grand words and worry like he did. He never had. The sparse groups of citizens and visitors all around him still celebrated this blessed day. Dances and melodies and pastries a drifter from down yonder the steps would never be allowed to take part in. This was just another empty day in the life of Hayseed, son of Gerfaz. An abrupt lapse of lucidity made Adder turn his head away from his hooves at last. His ears perked up and his fur stood on end as he tried to make sense of this careless trip he'd just taken. The music was deafening all around him, the crowds untraversable. He didn't know how far he'd walked or how he'd managed to make some space for himself, but it was obvious now that he had stumbled into some sort of performance. A stage where the whole city would be looking. What a dream. But a remote voice in the back of his thoughts told him he didn't have time to find out what kind of show could attract such a crowd. That was not where he was supposed to be. He knew his gut had been lying to him when he caught sight of a small flickering light coming from a discreet tent, around which the crowd seemed to oddly absent. His eyes wouldn't budge from the curious flame shining in the dark. He sensed its offer, warm and loud. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Like, it does help with the streaming. Like, yes, the characters are voice acted, but like the narrator's voice is open. So, I think that was actually, I think, a good decision choice of the designer, because then it's like, okay, well, like the narrator could be the voice of the player, reading it instead of like just a voice that she picked. That and like the narrators probably would have been really expensive, honestly, because the narrators like got so many lines. Adder didn't even consider for 1 second that he may have been too hungry to think straight. He ignored all the warnings of common sense would have taught him and marched straight into the tent. Dusk was still a ways off, but it may have as well been midnight inside. Adder combed the darkness desperately, startled by a sudden change in illumination. Sweet, frightful clarity once more. What in the name of Hatsa was I thinking, he pondered breathlessly, in breathless silence as his mind started conjuring bandits, assassins, and monsters, ready to tear his cape into pieces and fashion toothpicks out of his horns for having been so reckless. But he didn't fret long, as his fears were interrupted by the birth of a flame in the corner of his sight. Its flare grew with unmeasurable force, blinding him for a moment. He struggled to regain his vision, fearing those foes that only lived in his mind, foes he wouldn't face today either. Bathing in the light of an orb that was filled with fire, shaded in ways that made no sense whatsoever, awaited a silhouette. A very recognizable silhouette.
Took you long enough.
Of course it was her.
Yeah, it's not a living!
And all of a sudden, Adler wished he had found a bandit instead. At least he would have felt justified in the terror that rooted his feet so firmly to the ground then. The boy remained immobile, eye fixed on the woman in front of him, following the million glitters of ruby necklace hanging around her neck, reflected all over, dragging his attention right back to the extravagant spread of finely woven silk so carelessly tousled on her hair. Addersund was never much of an analytical boy in his day-to-day, but he became quite the sleuth when it came to attempting to pinpoint the line of work a dress revealed. And without revealing nearly a single thing, this one only managed to have him at a complete loss. It was a pressing question. He might have been too polite to ask, but the lump in his throat not taking care of that issue for him.
Don't just stand there. Take a seat.
I don't know. I've been sitting on my tail all day, and I got places to go, and I don't usually share tents with ladies, and...
Judging by her glare, she wasn't going to take no for an answer.
What am I saying? It'd have been mighty ugly of me to reject an invitation.
Adder did as asked and sat down on one of the many pillows lying around. Pretending to be crazy, escaping, begging for God's mercy, breaking down and claiming that he wasn't, in fact, a horn-eater, that this was just a mistake and he shouldn't be here. Adder's mind was bustling with ways to get out of that situation. So, of course, whatever his mind was busy, his mouth was free to speak as it pleased.
Hi.
He spoke with a voice more akin of a fawn whose antlers are just beginning to sprout than a fully grown deer. So which one? I matter or nice place? Nice place you got here. Just as a reminder, the last time we were kind of confident, which was this one, she didn't like it that much, so...
Nice place you got here. I like your cushions. These cushions over here and over there.
Wow.
Comfy. What are they made
Wow.
of? They gotta be the comfiest cushions ever. Can I bounce on them, ma'am?
Good night, everybody. Jeez. Oh, I love it.
Please don't.
Okay, but I'm talking about your cushions, not your cushions, all right? Not gonna bounce on either. Just want to make that crystal clear.
A mocking chuckle stabbed Adder's heart, feeling even more self-conscious than he thought he was capable of. He held onto his hooves and fixed his gaze on the ground, screaming inside as his face burned.
So it wasn't the contusion after all, huh? You're just like that.
Like what now?
Funny.
Funny? Me? Not one bit, man. I ain't got a funny bone in my body. Doc and I ain't ever seen worse jokes than Adder scenes.
Yeah, I mean, unintentionally funny is still funny.
Hold up. Didn't that sound like a poem just now? Well, darn. A poem ain't nothing but a dull song, Mr. Bard always says so. I'd hate to bore a fine lady such as yourself, so I better get...
On the contrary, I'm looking forward to your next bout of unsolicited poetry. Would you define any other parts of me as too much?
Jaceve took her thumb and an outer curve of her left horn, tracing it in a slow, deliberate motion.
I don't see what horns got to do with anything here.
I didn't say anything.
I didn't say you said I said it. But I don't know what you're thinking I'm scared of. Want me to say you're pretty again? Because I could just say that. I mean, you're gorgeous, see? That's no skin off my back.
So you really meant my beauty.
Ma'am!
It's okay. Leave your secret with me. I won't tell. After all, everyone thinks the same about Jaceve in private.
Adler couldn't help but think that maybe Jasif would think a little bit thought a little bit too highly of Jasif if she used Jasif to talking about Jasif, you know, third person and all. Come on, Strangelove, give him a break. But he made a point not to say that out loud since the situation was already bad enough as it was.
I'll take your word for it, ma'am.
A deep silence filled the tent. Adder cursed his luck with his good manners. He wanted to run away and hide, fearing that otherwise he'd commit a big mistake. The kind of mistake that would get him called a horn eater for the rest of his life.
Well then, it was sure nice to see you again, but...
Would you like to know your fortune?
Adder turned on his heel, desperate to find out if her offer was indeed true. There was nothing that betrayed a lie in her words nor in her eyes.
Whoa! You're one of those Gazelle fortune tellers? For real?
Let's just say they looked rather different back in Adder's town.
Well, slap my head and call me silly. I got you pegged all wrong, ma'am. Darn right I'd love to hear it. Oh, hold up. I lost my bag of coins. I ain't got a single dollar on me, so...
Something flew on the ground right by Adder's foot. I knew it! I knew she stole it.
My bag?
You dropped it right after you crashed the first time. I meant to give it back, but since you were so bent on running through that wall...
You didn't steal from it, did you?
Steal what? It's just filled with rivets.
Aha! That means you opened it!
So much for wanting to see you again. That was all. You can go now if you want.
Punch to the gut would have hurt Adder infinitely less than her words. What am I doing? He thought to himself, biting inside his cheek. No mere thief would have returned his bag. As sad as that was, no other person would have gone so far for him. So he sat down once more, looking at the finely yet peculiarly dressed woman in front of him with a mix of embarrassment, naivete, and just plain fear.
I don't suppose you accept rivets as payment.
That would depend on what you're paying for.
Getting my fortune told?
Just keep them.
Justine rested her arms over the crystal ball, leaning closer to Adder.
All right! Can you look into the ball thing and tell me how my ma and pa are doing? Did any of my little bros get married yet?
That's cute, but it's a reading glass, not a magic mirror.
Right. How about the weather? Can you give them good harvests?
Take your prayers to the temple.
Oh, darn, that won't do either. Alrighty then, how about me? What do you see in this buck's future?
Your future? Why would you want to know anything about that? Life would be boring if you knew it waits around every corner. I'll read your past and justify your present.
But I already know those things.
I don't.
Adler was quite setting on asking what she meant, but his brain shut down. Shut down operations completely as the girl also casually decided to shuffle closer to him, a little lighter now on the shoulders without a cape weighing her down.
For example, we could talk about why you did what you did for me then, and figure out what I could do to return the favor now.
Her blue eyes spoke like an insinuating whisper. Her lips walked over the cobblestone ground, headed towards Adder's own hands as her face got even closer.
I gotta insist, ma'am, that you definitely got the wrong bucket. But even if I ever did anything nice for you in my life, a simple thanks is more than enough payment.
I guess you could use a reminder too.
The soothsayer made no attempt to conceal her disappointment, much like no other one ever any attempt to explain what the coming on too strong means. With apparent tedium, she grabbed the crystal orb and put it right between her face and Adder's. This time, she had no more pretensions than merely watching him.
Oh fire, tell me the secrets in the... Yada yada, stuff and bazaktet. I don't feel like switching languages now.
Her complete lack of professionalism made Adder feel for once at ease. After all, what would he do if he was indeed in front of a safe? One who could see one of those heinous barroom wizards from far back in time. Cry, beg, try to escape. Wait, those were things that he'd already thought of doing. As Adder was considering the subtle differences in the fears he felt when talking to a girl and imagined being burnt to a crisp by a witch, she watched him. And she kept watching. And then she watched some more. The gazelle lifted her head from behind the glass as she squinted her eyes into fine lines. Whatever she was looking for, she couldn't find, but she still ducked behind the orb once more, hoping to reach some kind of conclusion. Focused with such intensity that her eyebrows could have split her forehead in two, and she wouldn't have noticed. Jasif pressed her mouth to one side, wiggled her nose, and opened her eyes so wide that Adder couldn't help but laugh.
Shush! It's easier with two.
She mumbled the last part to herself, but Adder was sure that she'd said eyes.
Oh, what's that? You ain't never done it with a one-eyed deer before?
Adder pressed his lips together like he wanted to make them disappear. Jasif merely rose an eyebrow. The accidental innuendo made him begin shaking from horns and hooves once more.
Screw this.
She pushed the orb away with an exasperated sigh before Adder knew what was going on. His face was in her hands and her face right in front of hers.
I need to find out if it was you after all. Stay still.
A drum beat in his ears. That was Adder's heartbeat. As she stared at him so intently, there was a lump in his throat. He did the best he could not to tremble. Her eye began feeling heavy as he tried to hold her gaze. She's muttering something, words about his past, but her voice became obscured by the noise of bells, cackling fire, the sound of her own eyelashes batting against each other.
It's really too sodding late to be dealing with pests like you. And yet, here we are, wasting my time and yours.
Hey! What's that supposed to...
Adder's complaint vanished at a spear point. Two guards had replaced the gazelle, one old and complacent, and one young and eager, and inches away from stabbing his nose.
Just who do you think you are?
Who do you think I am?
That was Jasif's voice, but as much as he tried to find her, Adder couldn't see her. In fact, he couldn't even move at all.
What? Ugh, I won't fall for your bar and mind tricks, gazelle. I don't care if you're Hayseed or Hayseed. Only nobles are allowed to walk the royal pathway. No exceptions!
Adder felt a lump in his throat as he unwillingly took over the railings that he was leaning against.
I don't suppose you expect me to jump off the bridge.
The younger guard opened his mouth to reply, but his partner cut in line.
Can't you see that you're scaring her, you dimwit? Take a step back!
What? But she's trespassing!
The young guard got smacked in the head for his efforts.
Settle down, boy! You forgot to clean your ears this morning or what? She said she's Jasif. Jasif! This girl's far more than nobility, see? She's a queen. The queen of the desert rose, no less. Now that's what I call a fancy title.
Call it whatever you please. It won't change the fact I am the one and only Jasif, and you are a deer with good taste. You must have heard my name in 100 whispers. So, just imagine how terribly worried Miss Rochelle will be if her favorite girl doesn't make it home before dawn.
Liar! There's no way the Desert Rose would have someone like you! Your kin shouldn't even be outside after curfew!
My kin? You mean gazelles who could buy your whole street?
So much for the open-minded youth. Forgive this fool, your majesty. He's so uptight I think he sat on his spear. I'm sure you know his kin. A fawn like him wouldn't know royalty if it spat in his face. He's got a point, though. Any gazelle could sneak up here and say she's a queen because she's the daughter of a goat with a bald spot on her head. You understand, right? We can't just take your word for it. Nothing personal, of course, it's just common sense. Here's a thought. Why don't you sway us with a little dance? I'm sure that Jasif would do anything for her subjects.
What are you saying, you numbskull? We're on duty, and she's not even a... three's sake! We should just drag her to the dungeon and end this nonsense!
Yeah, spare me the lecture, kid. Hey, do one of those bar and dance things. That'll shut him right up. You know, the one with the fire and the bells and the...
The older guard cupped his chest and pretended to dance as he cackled, much to the revulsion of everyone involved. Adder could feel on the tip of his tongue scraping his teeth, far smaller than and more well-aligned than anything he remembered them being. His patient was growing worriedly thin.
I could dance for you, if you don't mind having an early cremation.
Huh? Was that a threat just now?
Not at all. I'm just pointing out that I'm not dressed for the occasion. It would be a pity if your face was to catch fire and your skin burst into flames, turning your bones to charcoal inside your blazing corpse while your ashes moldered up here. Just because I didn't have a fireproof shirt.
Right. Well, it doesn't look like you have any other way to prove your words, Your Majesty.
I suppose I don't, but I bet my good friend Illigrab could find a way to prove them for me.
And walk you all the way across the city on the off chance we find that fidget arse of a tree sitting at his desk? We don't get paid that much, little lady.
Victoria's smile crossed Adder's face, an opening at last.
I understand now. A discount isn't even remotely enough to cover the entrance cost of the Desert Rose on a poor, hard-working guard's salary. And that's not even adding the price of my performances.
The old guard's eyes shut up as he felt a few coins slipping into his hand.
Don't worry. I'm sure there's some places down the street that are better suited to your taste.
He remained transfixed by the money a moment longer until something seemed to click in his head all of a sudden.
Who do you take me for, scamp? We are honor-bound city guards. We won't get buffed by the likes of you.
What? Come on! This was more than enough last time. Why isn't it working now?
The guards didn't react to that sentence at all. It was like they hadn't heard her. What Joseph's voice sounded like was clear in Adler's ears. The thought passed as soon as it came. The quick, anxious looks that the old guard was directing at his partner became the new focus of Adler's attention. The moment they locked eyes, the answer he'd been looking for had become evident.
Of course. I should have noticed sooner. He's a new recruit, isn't he? Look at him. So eager and uptight. So focused on proving his worth to the captain. So predictable. You couldn't possibly trust someone like him with a bribe. He's too different from your old partner. But you couldn't trust that one either, could you? No, he knew too much. And he wasn't half as jaded as you are. His heart wasn't really in it. Aha, I see. You had a feeling he would end up going after you. So, you sold him out first. That's why he's here.
How did you...
What? So she's telling the truth! You take bribes?
No! Well, maybe if it's enough. I mean, come on! It's just a god's damned bridge! What's the matter if we let rich people in at this point? They're no different from nobles. But I swear, I'd never gotten money from this. No, I'd never even seen this. Gazelle?
The guard's face contorted into a deep, wrinkly scowl. He looked beyond confused, lost. The song was reaching its final notes.
Aw, looks like your friend has a bad case of guilty conscience. That's okay. I'm no one to judge. Just let me go this time. I promise I'll be a good girl and head straight home. You won't even know I've been here.
Adler started to walk, a little spring in his step at something he barely recognized as his tail bobbing behind him. He felt above the moon, completely drunk from this power trip, but he was far from safe still. A strong hand clasped Adler's wrist tightly. This told him that he needed to know that this body wasn't his body, and this mind wasn't his mind.
But who else could it have been? You are the thief, aren't you? You really could buy this whole street if you wanted. It was you! It was you all along! What did you do to me?
I only gave you money.
You gave me cursed money! No! You cast a spell on me!
What in the world are you rambling about now? You sound like a madman!
Yeah, that's right! I have gone mad! It's not my fault! I'm not really a crook! She's a Sephi! She must have charmed me to do all those bad things! We're on to you, witch! Confess!
Every last fiber of her body was screaming at her to run. Jasif knew each and every corner of the royal pathway. She could have just hidden somewhere or outran the guards wearing heavy armor. That was the correct option. It was obvious to her. But that was not the choice she made. She pulled close to him and moved a smirk across his ear instead.
I wouldn't waste any magic on you.
There wasn't any trace of fear in Justinia's mind as the guard grabbed her collar and then pushed her against the railing. Not a speckle of resignation. It wasn't bravery either. There was nothing but anticipation. Eder didn't know the name of that eerie warmth that was creeping into her chest as he watched the tip of the spear toward him in slow motion. He had never felt quite so peaceful and thrilling before. But to her, this lost battle seemed to be worth as much as a victory. After all, she had been playing with fire her whole life. Getting burnt was an eventuality that she had to be ready to accept for years. She was tired of making choices. Fractions of a second before the end of her life could be sentenced, a scream shook the night.
Get your mitts off her, you creep!
Everyone turned to look at at the idiot yelling all the way on the ground.
Think you could just bother her last because she looks good enough for second helpings and then dessert? Well, you can't, alright? That's radish stew, and you'd make your mom cry if they knew. Let her go!
Adder had most certainly gone crazy.
What the? Oh, get lost, Sanford! This is official city business! It's got nothing to do with you!
City business, my ass! You're holding a gal up against the wall! I ain't got nothing to do with it, but it's still got everything to do with me! If it's so official, I'm gonna scream till the whole city wakes up and sees this!
No, you're not! Do something, rookie! Get rid of that drunkard!
What, you want me to throw my spear at some poor horn eater now?
Who are you calling a horn eater? Just hold up there!
Adder, the pudgy version of Adder, that is, wasn't concerned with matters such as a complete lack of grace, agility, or strength. Moved by his sense of justice, he began climbing the column that led to the royal pathway. Of course, he never made it.
Hey! Are you still alive? Horn eater!
Aw, poor kid. We can't just leave him to die all on his own. Guess he'll be jumping off the bridge yet, witch.
Puzzling as the scene was, Jasif realized that she didn't have another second to lose. With the guard's hand still firm wrapped around her collar and pushing her back, Jasif threw all of her weight on one leg, using her tail as leverage to complete a practice spin that ended up with her knee sinking deep between the deer's legs. He immediately dropped to the ground, but it wasn't quite enough to knock him out.
You little...
That's enough. Let's go.
But she kicked me! And she's a witch! She's...
I have no clue what this gazelle is or what she's not, but I can tell just fine what you are. I'm not leaving you another second with her. Get that old ass back to the barracks or I'm telling Illigrab what you just did!
It was the old guard's turn to go pale. He lowered his helmet and began limping in the other direction. The younger guard, however, stood in front of her a moment longer.
You! Go home and don't let me catch you up here again!
Jasif only allowed herself to breathe easy once both guards had disappeared from sight. Pride filled her lungs faster than air.
Good riddance.
She wasn't quite out of the woods yet, but she decided to savor this victory. A moment of peace, which Jasif took to look over the railings one more time. Her wannabe savior now lay unconscious on the ground after hitting his head during the fall. And in spite of how miserable the scene was, Adder could feel a smile forming on her face. He finally understood that, crazy or not, he was seeing what she was seeing, the way she saw it.
Did I scare him good?
Huh? You're awake? How in the name of Oblivion can you be conscious after a fall like that? You must be at least 5 stories high. Were we even trying to... No. That doesn't matter now. Are you hurt? Should I call a doctor?
Are you alright, ma'am?
No. No, I'm not hurt. So, yes, that was nothing. I'm fine, thank you.
And that's all this buck needs to feel fit as a fiddle.
What? No, I'm rather certain that's not how bodies work.
Oh, no, ma'am. You're thinking normal, dear. I'm something else entirely.
Drunk is what you must be.
I sure hope not. Would be a real shame if some barrel fever ruined the memory of your pretty face.
It wouldn't make much of a difference either way.
What was that, ma'am?
Cad! You are a cad! Does this look like a good time to be flirting to you?
A distant yell bouncing through the column, nearly sending Jasif's heart straight out of her chest.
Don't know about flirting, but it sure looks like a good time to get walking.
Then get up and walk! I can't just leave you to your fate now!
No, you ain't. You ain't leaving no one, ma'am. Slum dwellers like me come a door a dozen. I'll just play dead for a while and see if I can spend the night in the morgue.
More patrols were surely drawing closer by the minute, demanding she made a choice pronto.
This doesn't end here, understood? I will make it out to you somehow, so don't you dare die until then! Promise you won't forget it!
Whoa, wait, hold up. Who am I supposed to look for? I didn't even catch your...
Neither Adder once understood why she chose to run then, but she ran. She ran before the pitiful buck lying on the ground could finish voicing his request, pretending she hadn't heard him. But the answer she didn't give to the question he couldn't ask lingered as little longer in the space between old hopes and delusions. A sight that Adder found too engrossing to realize he was being left behind. Now the gazelle was far out of his reach, and with every step he felt her slipping away from his grasp a little further. He tried to keep up, but his legs wouldn't respond if it wasn't to her command. He tried to breathe, but he wasn't the master of his own lungs. His sight went dark, and his ears turned deaf. A violent torrent of foreign thoughts clobbered his brain as his mind dissolved back into the nether. As suddenly as he left, he found himself one-eyed, famished, and back into a tent. Indeed, this had to be him. The same gazelle was still breathing over his snout, blue eyes fixed on him with the intensity of a burning sun. But who cares about having the greatest beauty they've ever seen in their life all over their body? Not Adler anymore, no. A million questions filled his mind. Was this real life? Was this just fantasy? Caught in a lance? Anyway, was it just... were any... I didn't even... So when I made that joke, was this real life? Was it just fantasy? I didn't realize was it just fantasy was actually the next line. I was just going off on a Queen tangent there, and now, and then I tried to bring it back, and then it's like, wait, the next words were that. Now, come on now. Anyway, were any more of his memories slipping through the many cracks in his fog skull, or had starvation finally started to take a toll on his very brain? As was usually the case, his lips were refusing to wait for a finished script. They raced past Adder's mind, offering an answer to the only question he had never even asked.
Sep?
The word was so short and unassuming, seemed to awaken something in the girl that Adler thought was almost too dazed to recognize. He couldn't tell why her ears perked up, or why his gaze was immediately drawn to her horns and the beautiful mess of red locks she was desperately pulling behind them. Disconcerted washed away all conceit of her expression. It took away all the memorizing superiority from her eyes. Yes, she looked honestly and utterly tiny for a moment. Scared.
Where did you hear that?
Where did I... Oh! Ma'am, you're okay! You're gonna think I'm crazy, but I heard you say it just now. But not now. It was a long time ago. I was under Hirup's statue. I mean, you were, but I was you and not me, because I was trying to save you, but I fell on my face, and those guards laughed at me, and, just how the hell did I forget any of this? Why can't I remember?
You're a gaze reader.
Anger hit her like a wave as the shock disappeared. It's like, wait a minute, you're the one who can actually see into people's things, and I'm just faking this whole time? I'm gonna guess that's what she's gonna start.
Why didn't you say so? Get away from me!
The fire in the orb began flickering erratically, casting disturbing shadows all over the tent.
Whoa, what's going on? What in the name of Atsa did I do now? Was I supposed to say something? Thank you. That's the magic word?
Do you seriously expect me to believe that you...
Hold on. Sip? It was Sip, wasn't it? Oh crap, I just went and cussed a lady out in Gazelle speak, didn't I?
She looked at him with skepticism, her eyes squinted with barely concealed anger. She was clearly sizing him up.
No. You really don't have a clue of what you just did, do you?
Ma'am, if I ever got a clue in my life, it wasn't today. I'm just glad you're alright and that guard is in the dungeon or dead or something.
Her expression relaxed just a little as she considered Adder's words. Our poor boy had more than enough trying to keep the air to his lungs.
Then you're telling me that you're a natural gaze reader? Do you even understand what this means?
Do I have to say yes or no to get out of here alive?
Adder was pretty sure that he had made a perfectly legitimate question in regards to his survival, and this was no joking matter, but he was thankful all the same when a small chuckle erased all the tension from the gazelle's face. He didn't feel any less confused or about the whole ordeal either, however.
Think of it this way. I tried to sneak a glance into your past through a tiny keyhole, while you just barged into mine through a door I didn't bother closing. That's on me, yes. I didn't even consider for a second I'd need to keep my guard up around you. But to casually stumble upon the basics of Cepheid, just like that, innately, it's something unheard of among the Akain.
Yeah?
I guess it's true what they say about yellow deer. You must have Barhan blood.
Adder would normally have disputed that last affirmation. Roe deer took pride in being real deer, no gazelle blood at all. Nope, 100% deer. Deer with does not mean which does that don't have horns, but this was clearly not a moment for nor the company to say that.
In Sirnar, please.
You read my mind.
Say what? I think I'm not the funny one here, Missy.
The gazelle seemed way too amused with this development.
No, it makes so much sense. I was wondering why you spent so much time looking at my face. Hear me out. I'm sure you've always been really good at getting people's feelings. But not smart enough to actually understand them. You're like some kind of savant hick. That's hilarious.
A wrinkle formed over Adder's snout. That was quite enough.
My name is Adder, not Hick, Miss Sep.
Now, why'd you go hiding such a cute little name, I wonder?
Her face went back to being a little more than a pretension of grandeur, but she held on the fire close to her. She didn't look all that different from a child hugging her blanket, soothed by the rhythm of the bell she wore.
It's just a stupid nickname someone gave me. I hadn't heard it in years. They call me Jasif now.
Jasif, as that disgusting guard did as well. That was no average name, and much less for a Burman.
Ain't that something like Queen in Gazelle speak?
Bazaktet. And yes, that's a valid translation. Do you have any qualms about it?
Adder did not have any qualms per se, nor any remote idea that word meant to begin with, but he certainly had opinions on her supposed royalty. Alright, I'll let you guys pick this one. I gotta grab a drink of water real quick. Though I'm pretty sure we're pretty close to done here. Whole stream of Queen jokes. Well, we already made a Queen joke earlier, only I flubbed it because I didn't realize that they were going that way.
I don't know what that word means, but I like Sep better. Sep.
Do not call me that. It's just a stupid...
Calling yourself Queen is a whole lot sillier, Sep.
Sep's lip trembled in anger, but Addo just shrugged. That's what she got for picking on him. The redhead tensed her whole body, and she was about to reply. She decided instead to just look away.
Are you alright?
She turned her face sharply toward his. There was something in the way she was looking at him.
Adder, right?
That's me!
He took a hand to his heart and bowed his head as instinctively greeting and accidentally clashing his horns against hers. He was surprised to find out somehow that was a lot less gross than he thought it would be. and he didn't know how to feel about this appreciation.
Didn't you want to know your future? Then listen closely.
She put her mouth right next to his ear and whispered, "If you ever call me sup again, I'm gonna kill you."
You're coming with me tonight.
Where?
You really are one of a kind. Come to the Desert Rose when the lights are all out. My room is on the first floor, but climbing there should be easier than climbing the bridge at the very least.
Wait, climb? Room? There you go saying weird stuff again. I'm not a thief, and I'm not a hoarding...
Well, previous war in the fire and the orb was extinguished, leaving the room in total darkness. Adder didn't even have time to feel alarmed. He felt her hands on the back of his head, and next thing he knew, lips pressed against hers. His mind shut up completely.
See you later.
He couldn't even stop to consider how he felt about that before the kiss was over with. With his mind still in a daze, he got up and turned to leave. For a few moments he stood frozen outside the tent, merely appreciating the cool dusk breeze on his fur. By the time his thoughts began making sense, he was already running foam at full speed, crying discontently about the realization he was, in fact, a horn eater. Let's take a break here. I want to review what you've written so far.
What, you don't trust my writing skills?
No, obviously.
Feels good to be loved.
It really does.
So, Adder was a gaze reader, just like me.
Yes.
And he really was into Sep in the end, which explains a few things.
A few.
If Adder and Geoff had an unlikely yet alluring, brief, intense romantic involvement, how would it have been called? Gitter? Adeth?
Pandering.
Then I guess the only question I've got left is this going anywhere at all?
Huh? What do you mean? You learned about your beloved knight already, haven't you?
Yeah, sure. Don't take me wrong. I like your take on the story so far. I just can't figure out how any of this leads to him becoming a knight, much less the knight.
Patience, little Nash Snap. All shall be revealed.
Like your major crush on Sep?
What?
You can put all the words you want in Adder's mouth. I know an obsession when I see one.
Go get your eyes checked then.
I'm gonna go back and count how many times you've mentioned her butt.
No, I just... That's it. You're not hearing another word about her.
What? Boo! This is a biased recount. I'm calling Radish Stew on this.
I never claimed to be objective, you tiny insurgent. It's my story and I'll share it how I see fit.
Unbelievable! You are silencing the very truth you champion! Whatever shall become of Adder's story if you bereave us of the booty?
There are more characters in the story, you know.
Or were you in love with them too? Ow, 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 ow. Okay, I'll take it as yes!
You know, looking back on it, there is someone I should have loved more. Honestly, she was a bit rough around the edges, and she wasn't always the easiest kid to be around, but the reward for preserving her by my side was unwavering loyalty and an iron-hearted friend.
Sounds like a nice girl.
Oh, no, she was horrible and I hated her.
What?
Chapter 2. Next time. Alright, that's a good place to stop. So these chapters, I think, are going to be just the right size for this stream. It's almost like it is perfectly designed. Alright, so next time we're going to do Chapter 2. We did Chapter 1. Really liking it so far. Very much a visual novella. Got a little spicy, but not too spicy. I like the joking. I like the innuendo jokes and stuff like that. I always find it very it's always fun It's always makes characters fun when it's like when they're joking like that. All right. We'll see you guys next week. It's going to be on the 27th at 5 p.m. We'll start Chapter 2. Have a good night, everybody. Even though not a lot of people showed up, hopefully some people have watched the recording, because I think it would be well worth it. And they'll join us next time for Chapter 2. Or they'll just jump in on Chapter 2, and they'll be in medias res, as it were. Have a good night, guys.